This happened just a few weeks ago. I'm a 32-year-old nurse, and I recently switched to the night shift at St. Augustine Hospital. I needed the time to take care of my dad while working. At first, I thought the night shifts would be peaceful. But they weren't. They were anything but peaceful. On my third night, I was sitting at the nurse's station, going through charts. The only sounds were the buzzing fluorescent lights and the faint beeping of machines. Then I saw something move out of the corner of my eye. It was just a shadow darting by. I turned my head, but the hallway was empty. I figured I was just tired. Night shifts were rough, and maybe my eyes were playing tricks. I tried to shake it off and went back to my work. Later that week, I started hearing sounds from the pediatric wing. They were soft cries that seemed to drift through the hallways. No one was supposed to be there at night. I swear I heard a child calling out, and it sent chills down my spine. I felt like I needed to check it out. If a child was in trouble, I wanted to help. But when I got there, the wing was dark and silent. My heart raced as I turned back. That was when I began to wonder if I truly believed in ghosts. It felt strange, almost wrong. As the nights went by, things escalated. One night, I walked past the supply room and the door was wide open. I always locked it. The door swung slightly on its hinges, and I stood there, frozen. Should I go in? I felt a chill run down my spine, reminding me of the cries. I was scared, but I couldn't make myself check the room. I just turned and hurried back to the nurse's station. Then came the worst part. I started to feel like I wasn't alone. I'd be doing medication rounds, and the hair on my arm would stand up like someone was watching me. Every time I glanced over my shoulder, nothing was there. My heart raced, and I felt dread build inside me. Usually, I didn't scare easily, but this was different. Something felt wrong. One night, I rounded a corner and saw that shadow again. It was standing there in the hallway. The stillness was unsettling. I blinked, and then it was gone. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. I just hurried back to the desk, gripping the edge tightly. I didn't know what I just saw. I couldn't shake any of these feelings. I wondered if I was imagining things or if St. Augustine Hospital was hiding something. Was it just the long hours and fatigue, or was there something more going on in those dark halls? I kept hearing whispers in the emptiness. Now, every time I step into that hospital, I wonder if I'm truly awake. I don't think I'll ever find the answer. That night, I felt restless. It was my fifth shift, and the unease lingered like a thick fog. I grabbed my coffee, hoping the caffeine would snap me out of it. As I sipped, the whispers returned. I could almost make out words, but they slipped away as soon as I focused on them. I shook my head, trying to dismiss them. Around 3 a.m., I was charting a patient's vitals when the lights flickered. My heart raced. This had happened before, but it usually settled quickly. This time it didn't. The flickering continued, and I felt the heaviness return. Someone was watching. I glanced up, expecting to see someone at the desk. No one was there. Just the vast emptiness. I pushed myself to finish the charts. After I gathered the papers, I heard the soft cries again, drifting from the pediatric wing. An icy grip formed around my gut. I hesitated, then decided I couldn't ignore it any longer. I needed to see if a child was in trouble. I made my way down the hall. The tiles felt cold under my feet, and every step echoed in the silence. As I approached the pediatric wing, the cries intensified, turning into desperate sobs. My heart dropped. I sprinted to the entrance and pushed open the door. The room was dark, lit only by the dim glow of emergency lights. Empty beds lined the walls, their sheets crisp and white, but they felt wrong somehow. "Hello?" I called out cautiously. "Is someone there?" The cries stopped. Silence enveloped me. I peered around, searching for any sign of life, but there was nothing. Then, I noticed the supply closet at the far end of the room. The door stood ajar, just like it had the week before. A chill raced down my spine. Against my better judgment, I walked over to it. As I reached for the handle, something soft brushed against my arm. I recoiled, gasping. A toy bear lay on the floor. It was dusty and forgotten, like it had been lost long ago. My chest tightened. I picked it up, feeling its worn fur under my fingers. It was so out of place. That was when I saw it, a small, tattered note sticking out from the bear's collar. "Please help me," it read, in shaky handwriting. My breath caught in my throat. I looked around the empty room again, feeling a prickling at the base of my neck. If I was to believe in ghosts, then what was this? Who wrote the note? I turned in a panic, clutching the bear tightly, and hurried back toward the nurse's station. I needed to regroup. But as I rounded the corner, I stopped dead in my tracks. The shadow was there again. It was standing just outside the pediatric wing, watching me. This time, I didn't blink. Before I could react, it vanished. The air was thick with silence, and a cold wind brushed my skin. I couldn't breathe. I felt I was teetering on the edge of something I couldn't grasp. Then, out of nowhere, I heard a whisper. It was right next to me. "Help me." I froze, barely able to process what I had just heard. No one else was around. Just me and whatever was haunting those halls. My mind raced. I had to find out what was going on. But deep down, I wondered if I was digging deeper into a mystery better left buried. I forced myself to take a deep breath. The words "help me" echoed in my mind, wrapping around me like a noose. I had to think. Deep down, I felt like more than just a nurse. I was now part of something I didn't understand, and part of me wanted to turn back, to reclaim my simple night shifts without the added horrors. I clutched the bear tightly as I made my way back to the nurse's station. The shadows seemed to stretch and sway, teasing me as I walked past the dimly lit halls. My heart pounded in my chest. I needed to talk to someone, to share what I'd found, but who would believe me? As I reached the nurse's station, I was relieved to see Lisa, one of my colleagues. She was awake, her eyes heavy with sleep but alert enough to notice my shaken demeanor. "Are you okay?" she asked, her brow furrowed in concern. I paused, weighing my options. I heard something in the pediatric wing. Lisa's expression shifted, a blend of curiosity and disbelief. "It's probably just your imagination. It happens a lot during night shifts. You know how easily the mind can play tricks. But the whispers, and the bear their essay note." I rummaged through my bag, feeling frantic. I pulled out the bear and handed it to her. Lisa took it, looking puzzled. "This looks old. Where did you get it?" "At the supply closet." It had a note that said. I stopped as I noticed her eyes widen. "Lisa. Just give me a moment." She turned away, her fingers tracing the edges of the bear's collar. I could see her face paled as she read the note. "Did you hear those cries?" I pressed, urgency lacing my voice. She hesitated. "Sometimes, I think I hear things. But I just chalk it up to being tired." But her voice wavered, and I could tell she wasn't completely convinced. Suddenly, the lights flickered again, and a cold draft swept through the station. Lisa jolted, dropping the bear back on the desk. "What is going on? This isn't funny." As if to confirm her words, the lights went out completely, plunging us into darkness. My heart raced, and I fumbled to find my phone, its screen the only source of light. "I can't see anything," Lisa cried. "Stay close," I shouted, as panic crept into my voice. I reached for her arm, knowing I had to keep her calm. The whispers seemed to flood back in, overlapping and disorienting. "Help me." The voice came again, clearer this time, resonating through the darkness. It felt like it was coming from all around us. Then, unexpectedly, the emergency lights kicked in, bathing the room in a sickly yellow glow. And that S when I saw it standing at the end of the corridor, a small figure. I blinked, my breath shallow. It was just a child. She had a pale face and wide eyes, locked on us as if she had just stepped out of a nightmare. My stomach dropped. "Where is your room?" I called, desperate for connection. But before she could answer, she turned and dashed away, disappearing down the hall. "Wait!" I yelled, but she was gone. "Did you see that?" I turned to Lisa. I don't know what to think," Lisa stammered, her voice tinged with fear. "Follow her," I said, feeling a surge of determination. "Maybe she can help us figure this out." Together, we took off down the darkened corridor. I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever had happened next would change everything. As we rushed through the hallway, the shadows danced around us. The child had to be somewhere close. Each step felt heavier, as if the air was thickening with dread. I strained to catch any glimpse of her, but it was as if she had vanished into thin air. "Did she head towards the playroom?" Lisa asked, her voice shaking slightly. "Maybe," I replied, trying to remember the layout of the pediatric wing. We continued down the corridor, glancing into rooms as we passed. Each one looked the same, empty, eerily sterile, and filled with the remnants of happier times. Why would a child be wandering the halls at this hour? Lisa said, a note of panic creeping in. "I don't know, but we can't just leave her," I insisted. I felt a tingling in my spine, a sense of urgency pulling me forward. As we rounded the corner, we finally spotted her again. She stood at the entrance of the playroom, silhouetted against the glow of the fish tank. Her hair was unkempt, sticking out in wild tangles, and her clothes looked faded and oversized. For a moment, she just stared at us, her eyes wide and reflective like she was searching for something. "Hey, we're here to help you," I called, stepping closer. There was something about her presence that made me uneasy, yet I felt compelled to approach. "Help me," she whispered, almost pleading. "What do you need?" Lisa asked, trying to keep her voice steady. The girl pointed to a corner of the room, her eyes darkening with fear. "It's in there," she said before she turned and bolted deeper into the playroom. "Wait!" I shouted. We hurried after her, my heart pounding as I crossed the threshold. The air inside felt colder, and the decorations' colorful murals and cheerful toys seemed to mock the tension gnawing at my insides. Lisa and I scoured the room, looking for signs of the child. "What did she mean by it?" I whispered. "Maybe something is hidden," Lisa replied, sounding breathless. We stumbled upon a small wooden box tucked under a table, partially concealed by a pile of stuffed animals. "Here." I pointed, pulling it out. It looked old and battered, a layer of dust coating the surface. "Open it," Lisa urged. I hesitated but pushed the lid open. Inside lay a collection of faded photographs. As I sifted through them, my heart sank. They were images of children, some smiling, some not, in various hospital settings. But what caught my eye were the scars and bruises on their small bodies. Why would anyone keep these? I felt a chill creep down my back. Just then, we heard a faint sobbing noise coming from the back corner of the playroom. I shot Lisa a worried glance. "Did you hear that?" We exchanged a look of uncertainty, but I knew we couldn't back down now. "Let us check it out," I whispered. As we approached the sound, the lights flickered again. The sobbing grew louder, and I felt the air thicken with an unshakable feeling of despair. I found myself wondering what we were about to confront. Steeling myself, I pushed through the last of the shadows, and that S when I saw it, another child, crumpled on the floor. "Who are you?" I breathed, realization dawning. But instead of answering, she looked at me with hollow eyes, beckoning me to come closer. With a pounding heart, I took a step forward, not knowing whether to offer comfort or run. In that instant, I understood that I was crossing a line, a point of no return. I moved cautiously towards her, the urge to flee battling with my instinct to help. The child's expression was one of both terror and longing. I could see her tiny fingers twitching, as if she were reaching for something just out of reach. "Where's your family?" I murmured, hoping my voice would break through whatever fear had her in its grip. She didn't answer. Instead, she slowly pointed at the wall to her left. Shadows draped over it like dark curtains, and I squinted to see what she was gesturing at. Something felt off about that spot, as if it pulsed with hidden energy. "Let us get her out of here," Lisa whispered, her voice laced with urgency. But still, we hesitated, drawn deeper into the moment. "Do you see that?" I asked, my breath catching. A faint glow illuminated the space where the child pointed. I felt a pull toward it, though my mind screamed to turn back. "That looks like a door," Lisa said, edging closer to the wall. The sobbing child gazed at it, her expression pained. The glow intensified, casting unnatural shadows around us. "What is that?" I wondered aloud, though I was afraid of the answer. With each step closer, the temperature dropped, biting at my skin. I forced myself to focus on the child instead. "It's okay. We're here. You're safe," I tried to reassure her. That's when I noticed the photographs spread around her, all depicting children just like her. But on closer inspection, a dark pattern emerged. Each child seemed to fade, their smiles replaced by sorrow over time. I looked back at the crumpled one on the floor, my heart racing. "How long have you been here?" At that moment, a sound shattered the stillness, a sudden slam echoing from behind. Startled, I turned, instinctively grabbing Lisa's arm. What was that? The light flickered violently, plunging us into darkness. Panic ignited within me. "We should leave," I urged, my voice rising. But something kept pulling me back, drawing my gaze to the door emerging from the wall. There was no doubt now it was a door. We found ourselves staring at it, waiting, as if it held the answers we desperately sought. "Do you hear that?" Lisa asked, her eyes wide with fear. I strained to listen. In the silence, a low whisper curled around my ears, a chorus of voices intertwining in a haunting plea. "Help us, who is that?" I breathed, the urgency clawing at my throat. The child on the floor rose, her eyes somber, and she stepped closer to the doorway, a faint shimmer of hope illuminating her frail face. "Don't go," I warned, but she stepped forward like a moth to a flame. Then everything shifted. The shadows around us seemed to writhe, coiling back as the door creaked open. I felt a rush of cold air wrapping around me, pulling everything into its depths. "Get back!" I shouted, yanking Lisa away from the growing void. But it was too late. I could see the child being pulled into the light, her body disappearing into the doorway. Before I could react, the playroom filled with a blinding glow, and then silence. I blinked, and everything came rushing back. The chuckle of my heart in my chest replaced the piercing silence. The blinding light faded, but something felt wrong, a hollow pit starting to form within me. "Did that just happen?" Lisa whispered, her voice scratchy and low. I nodded, but it barely felt like confirmation. I forced my eyes to scan the dim room. The door had vanished. Where it once throbbed with energy, there was nothing now. Only the peeling paint and scattered photographs remained. Where did she go? I felt my throat tighten as a wave of unease hit me. What if she's lost? Lisa crouched to collect the photos, her hands trembling. "We can't stay here. We need to find help," she said, glancing uneasily at the empty space where the door had been. I followed her gaze, expecting it to reappear at any moment. It didn't. Drawing in a shaky breath, I stepped closer to the ghostly outline where the door had been. It felt wrong, an emptiness that clawed at me. "There might be more kids," I murmured, the dread creeping in. We can't leave them here. Don't. We just witnessed whatever that was. Lisa's voice cracked. We have to go. But I took another step, drawn by the memories of the child's eyes. What if that door is the only way out for them? Suddenly, a low hiss curled around me, pulling my attention. I caught a glimpse of movement in the rear of the room. Something was lurking in the shadows. I motioned for Lisa to stay quiet, my pulse pounding. The air changed again, thicker now, as if the very atmosphere was suffocating. When I turned towards the movement, I saw a figure. Tall, almost indistinct, it stood just outside the remaining light. My breath hitched. What is that? I whispered, trying to keep my voice steady. The figure shifted, and in an instant, my instinct screamed to run. Lisa, come on. I grabbed her arm and yanked her to her feet. We stumbled back, our eyes locked on the silent watchman in the dark. Then it spoke, the voice dry and raspy. You shouldn't have done that. You weren't supposed to see. The sound curled around us like smoke, tightening my chest. Who are you? I stammered, trying to sound braver than I felt. But the figure merely tilted its head in morbid curiosity. You've opened a door. Now you must understand. They're not lost, they're taken. The realization hit me like a slap. What do you mean? I heard the tremor in my voice but couldn't hold it back. Just as the words left my mouth, the walls of the playroom began to thrum. I felt a vibration in my bones, an echoing heartbeat that wasn't my own. Then the light flickered back on, harsh and blinding. I turned to grab Lisa, but she was already backed against the wall, her face pale. You can't go back, can you? She gasped, eyes wide and terrified. I searched the room for the figure, but it melted back into shadows, leaving silence in its wake. What do we do now? I felt a sense of dire urgency now, the dread shifting into something more palpable. It was clear we had to leave, but the deeper we delved into this darkness, the more questions surfaced. That's when I spotted a lingering reflection in the corner of the wall. My breath halted. It was a pair of eyes, watching us. Get out! I screamed, pushing Lisa as I bolted towards the door. But the figure was gone, and something far worse was rising behind us. We stumbled into an unknown future, and I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever we had awakened was just beginning. The air was thick with an unnatural chill as we rushed forward, my heart racing and adrenaline surging. Lisa stumbled behind me, her breathing sharp and panicked. The room was a maze of old furniture and dusty toys, promising refuge but feeling more like a trap. I scanned for an exit, any sign of a way out, but the walls began to close in. We need a plan, I panted, urging Lisa to keep up. There's got to be another way. But I wasn't sure if that was true. Every shadow seemed to pulse with intent, ready to swallow us whole. Look! Lisa pointed toward a window, its glass clouded with age. I squinted, the dim light just barely revealing a vast, overgrown courtyard outside. It felt like a lifeline, but knowing how hard it was to get to, I hesitated. Do you think we can get out that way? I asked, nerves crawling under my skin. Maybe. But Lisa's voice faded, her eyes darting back to the darkness we were escaping. What if it's not safe? Before I could answer, a sudden crash echoed from behind us. I whipped around, the sound cutting through my anxious thoughts. A heavy wind swept past, slamming something against the wall, a fallen shelf, perhaps. I could almost feel the force of whatever was hiding in the shadows. Run! I shouted, already moving toward the window. Now! We took off, dodging between the scattered debris, fueled by fear. As we reached the window, I glanced back. The figure had re-emerged, but now it was surrounded by a swirling darkness, a whirlpool of gloom that twisted and shifted, as if it were alive. It extended a hand toward us, fingers elongated and beckoning. We can't stop, I said, gripping the windowsill. With a grunt, I pushed, trying to pry the frame open. It wouldn't budge. "Help me." Behind us, the figure let out a sound that resembled laughter, a dry, echoing voice that sent tremors through my bones. "You think you can escape?" it taunted. "You have only just begun to understand. Stop it." Lisa shouted, as if her voice alone could dispel the horror that loomed behind us. She slammed her fists against the window, panic surging through her. "Break it." I shoved harder, adrenaline overtaking reason. The window finally cracked open, the stale air rushing in. I pushed my torso through, gasping for air, desperate to squeeze out before whatever that thing was could reach us. But the moment I made it through, I felt a sharp tug on my arm. Lisa was caught, struggling. "Help me!" she cried, her voice laced with terror. I turned back, hands fumbling as I tried to pull her through. The darkness was closer now, the figure looming, its eyes glowing like coals. "You can't leave!" it yelled, and my stomach knotted at the sound. "Hold on!" I shouted, pulling harder. We weren't going back. I felt the grip of the shadows attempting to snatch her. Like a lifeline, I yanked her arm, second stretching as if the world had slowed. With one final pull, Lisa slipped through, and we tumbled out onto the grass. We lay there, panting, staring up at the sky. But the relief was fleeting. "Where are we?" Lisa whispered, glancing around. The moon hung heavy above us, but the courtyard was vacant, the decaying walls looming ominously around us. As I scanned the space, something caught my eye in the distance, a flicker of light, moving like a dance. "Look," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Is that?" But before I could finish, the earth trembled beneath us. Something else was awakening in the dark. I scrambled to my feet, pulling Lisa upright. "We can't stay here," I urged, feeling the ground shift beneath me again like a warning. The flickering light was still there, casting uneasy shadows against the crumbling walls. Each pulse of the glow felt like a heartbeat of the place, drawing me in, but I hesitated. "Do you see that?" Lisa asked, her voice shaky. She pointed toward the light, her eyes wide. I nodded, unsure of what to think. While curiosity tugged at me like a string, fear held me back. "Maybe we should move away from it," I suggested, glancing back toward the window we'd escaped. The darkness still swirled inside, hungry and restless. But Lisa shook her head. "I feel like it's calling us." There was a strange certainty in her voice, one that intertwined with the fear rising in my chest. Before I could argue, the ground trembled again, this time more violently. I stumbled, grasping Lisa's arm to steady myself. "What is happening?" I shouted, trying to keep my voice steady against the chaos. "Let us just check it out," Lisa said, her determination surprising me. "If it's dangerous, we can turn back." I wasn't convinced, but the thought of the darkness behind us chilled my blood. The light flickered again, illuminating a path between thorny bushes that bordered the courtyard. "Fine. But we stick together," I said, my heart racing. We started toward the light, stepping cautiously. Each crunch of twigs and leaves beneath our feet echoed, amplifying the tension in the air. My instincts screamed, urging me to turn back, but I pressed on, drawn by the soft glow that danced ahead. As we approached, the light revealed an old lantern hanging from a gnarled tree branch. It swung gently, as if moved by an unseen hand. "What the?" I breathed. I reached for it, but Lisa pulled my arm back. "Wait. What if it's a trap?" she said, her eyes narrowing. "What if it's being used to lure us in? Then what's our choice?" I shot back. We could either stand frozen in uncertainty or take a leap of faith. I cursed under my breath, torn between dread and desperate curiosity. Just as I opened my mouth to convince her, a chill washed over us. A gust of wind swept through, snuffing the lantern's light and enveloping us in darkness. Panic surged through me as I fumbled for Lisa, but she was gone from my side. Lisa? I called, my voice shaking. Where are you? There was no answer, only the air thickening around me. I felt the oppressive silence weighing down on my heart. Suddenly, a soft whisper drifted through the darkness, shadowy and familiar. Help me, Lisa. I shouted, fear piercing through me like ice. I stumbled back, trying to regain a sense of direction, but the darkness felt alive, wrapping around me like a suffocating blanket. I took a step forward, and my foot hit something solid. That's when I saw it, something shiny buried in the earth. In my confusion, I knelt down to touch it, a chill racing up my spine as I uncovered a silver locket. I flipped it open and gasped. Inside was a small picture of us, Lisa and me, smiling. But something was very wrong. The figures in the picture were different, distorted, as if they belonged to a time long past. My heart pounded as I glanced up from the locket. The darkness was shifting again, and I could hear movement. I knew I wasn't alone anymore. The fear clutched at me anew, sharper than before. And then, in the hazy shadows, I saw a figure step forward, its face obscured. You shouldn't have come here, it whispered. The air crackled with tension, and my world teetered on the edge of understanding, and something far worse. My breath came out in quick bursts, and I stumbled backward, gripped by the figure's voice. It was a threat, a warning veiled in an eerie calm. What do you mean? I managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. The shadow didn't answer. Instead, it took a step closer, and I felt a desperate urge to flee. I turned, but the darkness seemed to close in tighter, the air thick with an electric tension, making it hard to breathe. My eyes darted around for some way out, but all I could see were indistinct shapes moving in the gloom. Panic clawed at me. I couldn't be trapped here. I had to find Lisa. Lisa! I shouted into the void, my voice echoing back, twisted and distorted. The figure paused, as if considering my call. I clutched the locket tightly, treating it like a talisman. I needed something, anything that could anchor me to reality. Suddenly, I heard a faint sound behind me, like shuffling feet on the ground. I turned to face it, hoping it was Lisa returning. Is someone there? I called, my voice trembling. The figure gestured, and a flash of movement caught my eye. It was Lisa. She emerged from the shadows, her face pale with fear. Relief washed over me, but it was fleeting. The air vibrated around us as if charged with energy. The very atmosphere seemed alive, swelling with unspoken danger. Where were you? I breathed, reaching for her, pulling her close. I thought I lost you. I don't know, she stammered, her eyes darting between me and the shadowy figure. It just swallowed me. The figure shifted, and something in its posture changed. You must leave now, it said in a tone that sent chills racing down my spine. This place is not meant for the living. What do you want from us? I demanded, my heart racing faster now. I didn't want to be here trapped in the dark, confronted by something I couldn't understand. Your ignorance is the danger, it answered, voice low and haunted. You don't realize what is at stake. The energy around us surged, and I felt an urge to run, to escape whatever this was. But Lisa squeezed my hand, grounding me for a moment. We need to understand, she urged, her voice steady despite the chaos. We can't just leave. I wanted to agree, to find answers. But the surrounding darkness pulsed and writhed, and I felt like we were standing on the edge of a precipice. Know this, the figure said, its voice turning hard and unyielding. If you choose to stay, you will become part of what lies beneath this earth. You cannot escape your fate. As its words hung in the air, a blinding light burst forth, engulfing us. Panic rippled through me, and I shut my eyes against it. I grasped tightly to the locket, its weight somehow reassuring. Then, as suddenly as it had arrived, the light flickered out, and the shadows reclaimed the courtyard. When I opened my eyes, the figure was gone, and the darkness began to recede. But the feeling of dread lingered. "Did you see that?" I asked, my heart still racing. "What was it talking about?" Lisa looked just as confused, eyes wide. I think we have to find out what it meant," she said. "Or we will never be free of this." I swallowed hard, realizing now that our night in this place had only just turned a corner into the unknown. The whispers again filled the air, a cacophony of messages, echoing both warning and allure. Then it hit me. "The locket," I gasped. "It must lead us to the answers." But even as I said it, I felt the weight of uncertainty settle on my shoulders. What if it only led us further into danger? With everything at stake, we had to decide quickly. And that's when the ground shook once more violently than ever before. The shaking rattled through my bones, causing a wave of panic to rise. "We have to find a way out," I yelled, gripping Lisa's arm as if she were my only lifeline. The echoes of whispers grew louder, filling the air with a confusion that made it hard to think. The locket pulsed in my hand, its surface warm, as if alive. "Where do we go?" Lisa shouted over the din. "Should we find that light? What if it's a trap?" I fretted, glancing back to where the darkness loomed. The shadows flickered, shifting dangerously close, and we could feel the oppressive weight of the unseen watching us. I had no answer, and the fight-or-flight instinct within me urged us to run. "Look!" Lisa pointed to a narrow path emerging between twisted, gnarled trees covered in moss, the flickering glow beckoning us forward like a guiding star. With renewed determination, we raced toward it, heartbeats pounding as if we were somehow keeping rhythm with the pulse of the world around us. "Stay close," I implored, leading the way, stumbling forward with a mix of excitement and dread. The brightness loomed larger as we dashed down the narrow passage, the shadows clawing at our heels. I could feel the energy carrying us as if the very earth itself was urging us on. We burst into a clearing, and the sudden brightness forced me to shield my eyes. When I could finally see, I found myself in front of a large archway that glimmered and shimmered, intricate designs swirling upon its surface. It looked both inviting and ominous, a portal that whispered promises and dangers alike. "Is this it?" Lisa hovered beside me, her face lined with uncertainty but laced with a glimmer of hope. "I think it's our way out," I murmured, heart racing, as I stepped closer. The air crackled with anticipation, and I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever lay beyond the archway would either unfold new blessings or unveil deeper terrors. "All we have to do is step through." Lisa sounded dubious, glancing back toward the shadows. The ground trembled again, more insistent. "Maybe, but what if it's a trap?" I asked, swallowing hard. "What if we're meant to stay?" The peculiar sense of belonging within the hospital's haunted walls gnawed at me, but I couldn't reconcile that feeling with the fear of becoming one with its darkness. Before either of us could voice another thought, the vibrations surged through my feet, sending us both stumbling. The shadows thickened ominously around us, threatening to reclaim what we thought we had gotten away from. "Go!" I shouted, making a split-second decision. I reached out for Lisa's hand and sprinted toward the archway. "Together!" "Wait!" she cried, but it was too late. We dove through the shimmering entrance as the world behind us imploded into chaos. The moment we emerged, we found ourselves rolling onto the grass again, alive, but breathless. But something was decidedly different, the air no longer felt ominous. We lay there, shoulders touching, staring up at a brilliant night sky dotted with stars that felt genuinely real. "What just happened?" Lisa gasped, looking around. It was as if the darkness we had escaped had never existed. The hospital loomed in the distance, peaceful and quiet under the moonlight. The whispers faded to a faint memory, and the imminent dread that had haunted us melted away. "I think we did it," I murmured, my heart fluttering with disbelief. But as relief began to wash over me, I couldn't shake the hollow sensation inside. Had we truly escaped, or had we merely traded one darkness for another? I looked at the locket still clutched in my hand. It gleamed softly, its secret sealed tight. I opened it slowly, half expecting to see new pictures perhaps of us, perhaps still lost children, but it remained empty, as if it had never housed our memories. "We can't ignore what happened," I said, casting my gaze back toward the hospital, which felt impossibly aloof now. "We have to find out who those children were, and what that place really is. We escaped, but at what cost?" Lisa added, her expression solemn. "What if we awaken something we shouldn't have?" I didn't have an answer, nor did I truly understand what we had stumbled into. I just knew that as we sat together with the night calm around us, the memories would haunt like shadows, lingering just out of reach. With a heavy heart, I stood up, unwilling to let fate determine our path. "Let us get to the bottom of this," I said, unable to shake the belief that this saga had only just begun. As we walked back toward the hospital, uncertainty loomed like a cloud. The paths we chose were as laced with shadows as they were illuminated by the truth, threading together the fragments of our haunting nights into a woven tapestry of what lay ahead, questions remaining unanswered, mysteries lingering in the air. I still think about that night. Every now and then, I glance back at St. Augustine Hospital, half expecting the shadows to return. But so far, nothing is out of the ordinary. Or maybe it is, and I'm just afraid to look closely. I moved on, but it changed how I see things. I needed to know what the truth really was. In a world cloaked in ambiguity, I realized that some doors shouldn't be opened.